So thanks so much for joining us. I'm Cameron Sutter, the creator of Plottr, and I met Honorée, what was it, last November, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't 2 years. It was last November
Yes.
in Las Vegas. And since I met her, I started using her system, and it has saved my book. So I'm writing a nonfiction book, and it really saved my book. And so I'm really grateful to have her here with us to help you guys save your books. And so I'm going to let you, Honorée, just start by introducing yourself and then telling us, what you do and how you help authors.
Yeah. So I'm Honorée Corder. I have written now 65 books and I'm working on the next several. I published my first book in 2004. And so this is my 20th year, if you can believe that. I'm the person people come to if they want to write, publish, and monetize their nonfiction book. So I have courses, I have a bespoke service, and I have author publishing services for people who already have books written, but they don't want to figure out how to create accounts and all of those sorts of things. So everything from done done by you, done with you, and done for you. Yes.
The whole gamut of everything.
Yes.
Man, that is really awesome. I, that I didn't realize that you do like the done for you, done
Yeah.
with you, and all that stuff. So I think we need to talk more about
We
that.
can. I'm happy to dive into any one of those things. I know I said a lot in a short period of time, so I'm open for whatever area you want to dive into.
Yeah, let's start by what if it's somebody if it's their first nonfiction book. They have this idea, they think they should write a book. How can you help people? How do you recommend that they start, first of all? How do you recommend that they start?
Yeah, so I have a series of questions that I ask every aspiring author who wants to write. And this is all nonfiction, y'all. Like we said, nonfiction, and that's what we're going to stick with because I can't really effectively advise anything about the fiction. But when it comes to a nonfiction book, the reason people generally write a book is because they want the book to do something for them or for their business or for their brand. And that's the very first question I start with is what do you want the book to do for you or your business or your brand? Right? What is the job of the book for you, the author? So you're going to tune into WIIFM, what's in it for me? And you're going to answer the question, what do I want from my book? What's the initial thing that I want from the book? And once they've figured that out, and there are generally three answers, or all answers fall into three categories. One is fame, one is fortune, and one is freedom. Right? So you either want someone to know who you are, you want to make more money, or you want to make enough money so that you have freedom. Right? And so I generally recommend that the order of importance leaves fame last because you will sacrifice freedom and finances for fame. If you put that as the first thing, I just want people to know who I am. I just want to be famous. You're generally going to sacrifice those other two. So that is a philosophical conversation for another day. But generally speaking, when someone comes to me and they want to write a book, no matter who's going to do it, me or them or us together, I want them to answer the question, what do you want the book to do for you? And most of the time, it is establishing themselves as an expert or helping them to get more work in whatever way that looks like. So, more customers or clients, elevating their name and face recognition, establishing themselves as a thought leader, something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you said that fame is usually the one that most people want, and then at the same time, it's the one you have to sacrifice the most for.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't, it's, that's a whole conversation, right? We could talk about people who have sacrificed everything, their freedom and their finances and their relationships, their family, another F, right? To be well known. It's just something to consider that if you are aspiring for fame against all other things, that might not be your best plan.
All right,
We
I'm
could
gonna
read a
scratch that off
magazine
my
about
list
that.
right now.
Yes. Yes. Put that at the bottom. It doesn't have to not be anywhere. I mean, if nobody knows who you are, nobody's going to hire you. So there's a little bit of a conundrum there. It's like you want everyone to know you, but you don't want necessarily everyone to know you. You want the right everyone's to know you in the right way for the right reason, right?
So a little bit of fame is okay. A little
Well,
bit of
I
recognition.
actually don't think a lot of fame is bad if you don't sacrifice, the little things like your integrity, the law, right?
Those little things.
You know,
So that's how you recommend that they get started.
yeah.
The first thing is figure out why they want this book, right?
Yes. Yeah, so answer those questions, right? Answer the questions and when you get really clear on that, you can go on to the next question, which I think you probably want me to ask, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is what would the job of the book be? And and I'm asking a lot of questions that I don't hear other people talk about when they are advising people. They go right to what's the big idea of the book. And I think there's some pre-work that most people have not thought to do or been advised to do. And so that second question is always for me, what is the job of the book? So when you're not around, what is the book doing for you? And it's back to what do you want the book to do? So we have to bake the job of the book into the book, but first we have to know what the job is, right? So the job of the book is based on what the author wants. And also, the job is actually two faceted. It's the two sides of the same coin. First is what is the job of the book for the author? So if you are writing the book because you want to be a thought leader and you want to get more clients and customers, then that's the job of the book. Right? Right? So that goes in there. Oh, you want more clients. So then people who are reading the book need to go on this journey of discovering what it is that you do and for whom and when and why. But the other side of that coin can sometimes be blank, which is not good because if all you're doing is selling in the course of your book, then the person reading your book gets really mad and they want their money back. So the other side of that coin is what's the job of the book for the reader? What's the journey you're taking the reader on? You ultimately want the reader to get somewhere. And I'll go through those questions in just a second because there are follow-on questions to help everyone complete this preparation process. But the job of the book for the author is different than the job of the book for the reader. So you want the reader to have something tangible when they're done reading the book. You want them to have had a transformation. You want them to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So once those questions are answered, so what's in it for me? What's the job of the book for me? What's the job of the book for the reader? Then we can get into what do you want the reader to do when they read your book? So, hi, I wrote Write Your First Nonfiction Book. I'm pretty bossy, as anyone who knows me would know. And so I want you to write your first nonfiction book. That's it. That's the title of the book. Those are the contents of the book. And then the next question after that is, what do you want the reader of the book to avoid doing? What do you want them to avoid doing, fail to do, or not have happen, right? So what I want you to not do is write a book. So back to number one, I want you to write a book. I also want you to have a good time writing the book. So I want you to avoid the frustration that comes with writing a book. I want you to have a process so that you don't procrastinate writing the book, that you don't get started and then quit writing the book. So when I replay these questions, it's what do you want the reader to do as a result of reading your book? And what do you want them to avoid doing, right, when they read your book? And then we get into back to the job of the book for the author. The next question in this process is what do you want the right reader to do? So if you have done any of your business pre-work, so if you're a business owner or you're trying to sell something, if you're writing a nonfiction book, chances are you're trying to sell something. You're selling a course, you're selling speaking services, coaching services, something. So if the job of the book is to get you more clients, then you've probably created an ideal client profile. I call them the avatar. So I go, okay, who's the ideal person for me to work with based on the contents of this book, based on how it fits into my business? And I'm doing some high level stuff here, so you can jump in and ask me a question anytime in just 1 second. But the avatar of the book or the right reader of the book, there's not a wrong reader, but the right reader is going to say, oh, snap. I do not want to do this on my own. What else can I do to get the help of the author? Is there a course? Can I do some coaching? Can I hire them to come speak? What else? Is there a workbook? What else does this person have? Because I know if I take action on the contents in the book, I'm going to gain pleasure and avoid pain, or both. But gosh, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not the expert. I want the easy pass. I want the fast pass. I want the line pass, whatever you want to call it. And so the right reader is going to say, Cameron, here's my American Express card.
Well, and usually I think people who are writing nonfiction, they're either business owners or they're busy people. And so they probably
Right.
do want more of that
They
hand-holding.
do.
They're not fiction writers, or, some of them maybe, but they
Correct.
probably want the hand-holding. They probably want somebody to help them and guide them more than
Right.
maybe a fiction person does.
There's so many questions. There's so many questions and so many forks in the road. And you can guess right and you can guess wrong, right? A broken clock is right twice a day. But if you don't know what you don't know, like I didn't know 65 books ago, which is why it's actually 66 books, but I had to do my first book twice because the first version was so bad. Um, so anyway, right?
I know
I
that
didn't know
feeling.
I didn't know what I didn't know, and I sure would have liked write your first nonfiction book, journal, and course as a reference point and someone that I could have reached out to and said, I just have some questions, right? I have some questions, or had those questions answered in the resource material that I purchased.
I had a question about something you said earlier.
Sure.
So your book is called Write Your First Nonfiction Book, and that
Yeah.
was the job to be done for your reader. Do you often name or title your books saying the job to be done for the reader?
It's not based on what the job is for the reader. It's really actually the origin of Write Your First Nonfiction Book was a blog post that I had sent to my list. I was like, look, if you want an easy process to follow, write about this in this chapter, write about that in that chapter. Here's an easy way for you to kind of write your book, and you can move the pieces around later, the chapters around later, like in Plottr, which is why I love Plottr, because you can just go, bloop, I'm going to move this over here.
Yep.
But generally speaking, just to give a little title advice, the title is what the book is about, and don't be cute or clever, because people aren't that smart or clever, generally speaking, and they don't have time to figure out what you had in your mind. I'm not saying that people are not smart. I'm saying they're not smart enough to intuitively know what you are meaning with your turn of phrase or what you're talking about when you're writing your book. And so when someone is looking at a book title, they need to know exactly what the book title is about. And then the subtitle is the promise of the book. What are they going to get in exchange for reading the book? So this is a primer for aspiring authors. It's just what it says it is. If you read this book, you're going to be primed to write your first nonfiction book. Keep it as simple and direct as possible. And you don't need to use the words how to, because in nonfiction, that's implied.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. This is really helpful because I'm still trying to figure out the title for the book that I'm writing. And
Oh,
so I'm like, yes, yes, please tell me more.
we can even talk about it offline, or we can figure it out right now.
Live. Um, that'd be kind of fun. So
Yeah.
okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that
Okay.
first.
Let's do that.
A
Yeah.
little nervous, but okay. So I'm writing a book about AI for writers, and
Okay.
it's kind of the philosophy of so it's not like, what am I trying to say? It's not getting into the how to use AI for writers, or the um what are the prompts, or what are the tools, or anything like that. It's the, should I use AI? Is it ethical? Is it going to take over the world? Is it going to destroy creativity? That kind of thing. It's the philosophy of, should I write
Right.
with
Mm-hmm.
AI,
Mm-hmm.
or use AI as a writer?
And what is your answer?
Um, it's yes, but you should also focus on the humanity aspects of writing, and uh, be more human. Write
Awesome.
more.
I might be tempted to do AI for writers with a question mark,
Okay.
because it's not AI for writers exclamation point. Like you must use AI as a writer. It's like AI for writers, question mark. So then the subtitle would be something around, um,
So-
maximize your creativity and minimize the time you spend writing, something like that.
Huh.
In other words, if you're, I've, I've had, I'm not an AI user. And let me just clarify that because I think we all use AI 100%. If you're using spell check, isn't that AI? Isn't that
Yeah.
artificial intelligence?
Yep.
Right. So I use spell check and I use Word. I was going to say Word Perfect. That's not it. It's Saturday. I need more coffee. Um, there's a pro writing aid, exactly
Okay.
the same
Yep.
without the word in it. Perfect. Okay. So, so I use Pro Writing Aid and I use Grammarly, and those are corrective AI, not predictive AI or creative AI. But I still think they're AI. I don't think anyone can say, I don't use AI. I used to say, I don't use AI until it occurred to me that that wasn't entirely true. Okay, fair. Um, so I think you can use tools to make your life easier. And AI in different forms can make your life easier, which will help you to be more creative because you're going to spend less time frustrated. I don't have to look up the spelling of a word. The AI is going to point it out to me that I misspelled it, or I used it incorrectly, or I used two words, or I'm missing a word, or my punctuation is wrong. So when you're putting together your subtitle, it's generally the rule of three for
Oh,
subtitles. So
what do you mean?
it's either a statement like a primer for aspiring authors, or I like to use, like, for You Must Write a Book, it's where is it? Hold on, it's up on my wall. Boost your brand, get more business, and become the go-to expert.
Oh, so there's three
So
things in it.
there's three things. So maximize your productivity, minimize your time to um a finished product, and live happily ever after. Right. Something, and crush the competition. I don't know. Get more work, something like this. Right now I'm writing romance. Perfect. Excellent. Yes. So generally something like that. There would be three main ideas in the book, and you could synopsize those on the subtitle, because that again is what the reader gets in exchange. So I'm thinking, if I'm using AI, what am I getting? I'm maximizing my ability to be creative because I'm minimizing the amount of time I have to put
Do
into
the
writing my
like,
book or do the
yeah.
things or whatever. And then what's the third thing that, and you might even start the subtitle with "you can," since it's a question mark, if you go with that,
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. You can.
right? So you can do this, that, and the other thing, right? AI for writers? You can. I did that with there is no such thing as writer's block. I put a can in mine. I did, you can unlock your inner prolific writer.
Okay.
And then I underlined can, and I italicized it because it's like, you really can.
Right.
Oh, and you could use that. You could use that as your third one. Maximize your creativity, minimize your time, minimize the time you use to write. It's too long, but you get the point. And
Yeah.
then and unlock your inner prolific writer. So you can maximize your productivity, minimize the time on a project, and unlock your inner prolific writer. Something like that.
I'll just steal right from your book. Yeah, we'll just
Please do it.
title.
Do it. I'm totally fine with that. Totally fine with it. Just say thank you, Honorée.
Yeah,
That's it.
believe
That's
me.
it. Here, and we're done, and we're good. All
Well,
good.
that was an interesting diversion here. Thank you so much for helping me figure out
Oh,
my
you're
title.
welcome. Now I want to see the book cover.
Yeah, when I have
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. I'm ready to read it. Because who
Great.
doesn't want to maximize their productivity, minimize their time on a project, and unlock their inner prolific writer? Sign me up.
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
I'm reader zero.
Well, I have a line already, so no, just kidding.
Okay, well, all right. I'm reader 4,872,000.
And not quite 4 million, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so that was good. That was a sidetrack here a little bit with the title, but I think that was really informative, especially for me. Um,
Awesome.
so you were talking about, let's see, where were we? You were talking about the best reader will kind of just like say, here, take my credit card.
Yeah,
How
the right reader is going to read your book and perhaps realize that what you are helping them to do is unattainable on their own and say, I just want to hire you. What are my options?
that sounds
And
like a really good outcome.
yes, well that's when you bake in the job of the book and it's titled and subtitled properly and the book is well written and it's taking the reader on that journey and they get so much value from the book that they've read, they want more. It's why we have favorite authors, right? Whether they're fiction or nonfiction. When we read a book, and how many times have you said or heard someone say, I was so sad when I got to the end of the book. And then I went and did what? You went and looked for what else the author had written, what else they had produced, what else, how else can you give them your money? It happened to me with Tony Robbins 30 years ago. I read Awaken the Giant Within, and he mentioned his Personal Power series. And so I went and bought Personal Power. And then I went to the Firewalk weekend. And then I went to Date with Destiny. And then I went to Life Mastery. And then I did it all again a million times. And it started with a book giving me a ton of value and also showing me how else I could give Tony my money. And here I am 30 years later, 35 years later, still talking about it.
Wow. Yeah, I know that's
Yeah.
happened to me so many times where I'll read a book and want to learn more. And luckily when I read your book, I knew you, and so I could say, hi, how can I how can I get more?
Yes. Yes. And also, that's what authors want. They want to hear from their readers. And that's what you're going to want as an author, as a nonfiction author. And you want to open that door. And you don't want to be the unicorn or the Loch Ness monster that no one ever sees and they can't find you, right? Unless you're that's your personality. There are some authors like that. But for the most part, it's really fun to hear from readers and reviewers and interact with them. And so you want to leave that door open.
And so you want them to come knocking on your door like, how can I get more? Right?
Yes. Yes, you want them to go to your website, sign up for your newsletter, and see and if appropriate, if helpful, to get what else you have.
So how do you make the right reader, or what do you do in your book to make the right reader want that?
I give them a ton of value, everything I can possibly give them without having a conversation. I'm not a hold back person in my writing, and I'm not a fluffy writer either. I tend to just get really right to the point and to give the value that I can give to someone as I possibly can when I'm writing. And I think people intuitively know is when they have a question, they know that there are extenuating circumstances. Well, I wouldn't have broken the law if this happened and that didn't happen, right? All that stuff, right? Extenuating circumstances. And so that's where the questions come in. I can only write to about 80 to 85% of someone's situation without knowing their specific circumstances. And so when you give a ton of value, you establish yourself as the expert. There's no way I can in 1 hour's time or in one book's time, nor can you, nor can anyone watching or listening now or later put everything they know in a book. And so unabashedly and fearlessly write down as much as you possibly can to help people, because the people who can't or won't ever hire you can't or won't ever hire you. But the people who can and want to will beat a path to your door. They will be so appreciative of the information that you shared so generously, and they will want to engage you at a higher level. It's not a zero sum game. It's not, well, if you put it all in a book because you can't, then you're never going to get any more business or make any more money. As a matter of fact, I have found the opposite is true.
Interesting. So you put as
Yeah.
much in there as you can because there's just no way to put everything for everybody's situation in there. So yeah, man, I
Right.
had
And also on the reader side, I read so prolifically and I'm always a little irked when the title of the book is so promising and the content lacks or fails. Like if you're going to put in there that you're going to change my life in if I'm going to get 6-pack abs in 30 minutes, one workout, I'm going to get on the floor, I'm doing the workout. But if I don't have 6-pack abs, I'm going to be cranky.
Yeah.
So if you promise something in your book, and there are a lot of people that have been really great at titling their books, but they don't follow through with the content.
Mm.
So title your book appropriately and then pack in all of the content that you possibly can.
And it's interesting you say that because you also said you're not a fluffy writer, and I've seen your books. They're very short compared to a lot of nonfiction books. And I
Yeah.
love that actually about them because so many nonfiction books just feel like they talk themselves in circles because they're trying to add more words to it. Like you already got to the point. I understand. I'm not learning anything new. Like
Yeah.
keep writing,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like that
I
at all. It was like get to the point and then that's it. Like I want more.
well, I want more of the author, but I already understand what they're saying. So give me more, go next level with me or something like that. I find that some books are gratuitously long. They're just talking around and over and just what you're saying. And readers are pretty ready to get the value of the book and have their transformation or put what you say into practice and get on with their day. And interestingly, I had someone say to me the other day, they got one of these small books that I have, right? Including Write Your First Nonfiction Book, right? Super small book. It is, I think it's rated 20,000 words. So maybe an hour and a half, 2-hour read at the most. And someone said, I read it. And they looked so surprised. And I said, why do you look so surprised? And the guy said, because it didn't feel like homework.
Huh.
So he said, I'm not a reader particularly, which, let's have a moment of silence, maybe a prayer, right? But right, it's like, oh, bless your heart, as we say in the South. But he's like, I'm not a reader particularly. So when someone gives me a book to read, it feels like homework. Feels like something I have to do, and then I'm going to see them later. And it's a long book, and I don't know when I'm going to fit that in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I feel like if you can give a ton of value in your book and keep it as short as possible, it's going to come back to you. People are going to get to the end of the book and they're going to want more sooner.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you always shoot for shorter stories then?
Well, no, I shoot for, here's the thing. I shoot for the size of a book that allows me to take the reader on the journey so that they get what's in it for them, right? So the job of the book for me, I've identified. But in order for someone to get there in the book, I have to write however long it is that I have to write it. It's going to be whatever number of words it's going to be. I generally have an idea how many words it's going to be based on the outline, and that informs and influences. And then I make sure that I'm not redundant very much. I don't have to be redundant. They can go back and reread if they're confused or they need more information, right? I mean, I'm going to hold them capable of getting what they need from the book without wasting their time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so are there any other questions that you ask people when they're getting started like that? So we already talked about their right reader. What's the next step?
So we've gotten to the end of the pre-questions, and this is all before you really start writing anything, right? So all the questions. So I can just recap them really quickly. What's in
Sure.
it? What's in it for me? WIIFM, like what's in it for me? What do I want from the book? Then what is the job of the book for me? What's the job of the book for the reader? What do I want the reader to do when they've read the book? What do I want the reader to not do or fail to do or avoid doing as a result of reading the book? And what do I want the right reader to do? So you've got those 6 really great questions that you're going to ask right at the beginning before you put pen to paper when you're thinking, I need to write a book. Now we're going to get into what's the book about and how to write that first nonfiction book. So now we're ready. Now we've done the pre-work, which I don't think very many people do. Although, who said, Troy, who is a ghostwriter, apparently. So what do you want from the book, right? But that's because ghostwriters have written books before. So you're a ringer, Troy. You're a professional. So then we get into the write your first nonfiction book. You get into the process of actually writing the book.
And okay, so that's when writing starts, huh?
Yeah.
Because before I read your book and took your course, I just started writing. And so then
Yeah.
when I got to those, you know, and so then when I went through those questions, that totally changed my book. First of all, like what was the point of it? What was I doing, you know?
Yeah.
And but then there's more that actually changed because you have like an outline for people that you give, and that just clarified my topic so much easier. I don't know if you want to get into that right now. Is there other
Sure.
parts of the process?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So the next logical thing for you to do is once you know what the topic of the book is about, then you're going to start to write an outline. And in Write Your First Nonfiction Book, I give you what to write about in each chapter. Now, I want to say it's said in the book. I say it in the course. I'm going to say it here in the webinar. I'm going to say it in all the places. They are chapters that are not chiseled in stone. The order of the chapters is not chiseled in stone. In fact, you don't have to write any of the chapters. You have to write any of the topics that are suggested in the with the chapters. But I have found that when you're trying to figure out not only what you're going to write about, the order you're going to write it in, the content of the chapters, it's too many things, and a confused mind says, "No, I'm going to go watch TV." Right? So when so when you know what the book is about and you want people to go on a journey, logically you want to talk about the topic in that first chapter. So what is the book going to be about? And that's where I generally start. So I was very meta with with Write Your First Nonfiction Book. I wrote the book the way that I was recommending people write the book. So the first thing I did was tell people that they could do it. Like whatever you're helping people to do, whatever their transformation is, whatever the process is you're sharing with them, you want to give them confidence that they can do it. So if you're a weight loss expert and you're telling people that they can transform their whole physical being over the age of 65, then you want to give them confidence in that first chapter they can do it. If Troy is writing a book for aspiring ghostwriters about how they can become a ghostwriter, he would write in that first chapter, you can become a great ghostwriter. You can become an award-winning ghostwriter. You can build a ghostwriting business, whatever the topic of the book is about. Then in chapter 2, I move into who did it before you. So I interviewed people who had written their first nonfiction book and put their stories in chapter 2. So just following that process. So if you're writing, what are you writing your book about? AI for authors, right? So you can say, you can write a book using AI, or you can utilize AI to maximize your productivity and minimize the amount of time that you are spending on a project and unlock your inner prolific writer. So that's what that first chapter is about. And then you can go find other people who are using AI in their writing and share their stories.
Know a few of them.
And yes, you might know a lot of them. And so then chapter 3, I get into the stages in the process. And I talk in Write Your First Nonfiction Book about another book I wrote called The Best-Selling Book Formula. And just real quick, I wrote the best-selling book formula. It was also a blog post. It was also an email that I sent out to my list. And both of these books, Write Your First Nonfiction Book and the Best-Selling Book Formula, were turned into books because of Kent Sanders, who Troy might know, ghostwriter. And he said, I wish I'd had this information when I was writing my first books. This would have been so helpful as a resource. You should turn these into books. And only an author would give another author a book to write, because that's kind of like, thank you. And also that's rude. Right. I was going to take a nap today, but okay, I'll work on a book.
Another
So
one.
yeah, so the best-selling book formula was what I discovered about the best-selling books of all time, because I used to say, I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I used to say people who are successful, people who have best-selling and best-earning books are unicorns. Like you kind of have to have a little bit of a lightning strike. And anytime I say something like that over and over again, there's a part of me that says, but is that really true? Is that an assumption I can make? So was the 4-Hour Work Week an amazing, successful book because Tim Ferriss got lucky? Or was it successful because there were certain things about that book that it had in common with other books that did really well over a long period of time? So I went and researched it, and that's what the best-selling book formula is about. So in chapter 3, I'm talking about the process that I'm sharing about this particular process and how to apply it. So I'm getting very, again, I'm very meta in this book where I'm actually writing the way I'm suggesting people write as an example so they can see what that's like. So I'm sharing the stages they're going to go through when they write the book and the process of actually writing the book. And then I put the process in action in chapter 4. So I'm sticking with that. So what you would do is with your book, AI for Authors, right? Are we going to use this in writing our books? It's like, here are the stages that you're going to go through. No, I'm never going to use AI ever. You're going to have to tell me if I'm intuiting any of these things that you have already down, right? It's like, no, I'm never going to use AI ever. It's going to be, it's going to be terrible lawsuits, blah, 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 right? And then it's like, okay, maybe I could use a little AI. And then Honorée said that there's accepted AI that's, corrective and not predictive and not creative. So maybe I can just continue to use that and not get in any trouble. And then maybe I could save a little time by getting some ideas or some, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, it's like, I'm going to use AI all the time. So maybe those are the stages of like, I'm never going to use it I'm going to use it and live happily ever after and be a prolific writer.
Right.
Right. And so you would put that in that chapter and allow people to go on that journey with you and recognize that everyone has resistance to something new in the beginning. And then we start to see other people doing it and we feel more comfortable with it and it's more accepted. And then we start to use it and then it's accepted and then it's changing the world and we're all going to be okay. Right. So I don't know if I'm hitting some of what you're saying, but this is where my brain goes.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yes.
yeah. So then chapter 5 is applying the process to your book. So this is the part where I go, okay, now you get to outline your book because you can apply my process of writing your first nonfiction book. Oh, yes. I have an online outlining tool in my head. Maybe that's a thing. Yes. And then finally, I get in chapters 6, 7, and 8, I get into more of the how you write, letting the words flow, publishing professionally. So the first time is the best time, talking about how much it costs to professionally and effectively publish your first nonfiction book like it's your 65th book or your 20th book or your 200th book, because you don't want to make amateur mistakes when you're writing your first book. And a lot of times I hear people go, well, I'm just going to get it out there and then my next book will be better. And it's like, oh, but you're leaving so much on opportunity and money and impact on the table when you do that. So just slow your roll, save your ducats, do it right. Right. So I'm making the argument for that. And then I give them encouragement. It's like, okay, so we're kind of back where we started in chapter 1. Chapter 8 is write your first nonfiction book now. When is now the right time to do something and get started? And so you would then apply that to the process of your book, making sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
it's 8 chapters. That's all it needs to be. And it's going to be
Yes.
an amazing book that changes people's lives. Um,
Yes.
and you don't have to have 20 chapters. You don't have to have 30 chapters. It can just be 8. And
No.
that was one of the eye-opening moments for me. It's just like 8 chapters. That's it. I can do 8 chapters, you know?
Yes. Yes. I wanted it to be um, easily digestible for the reader and easily doable for the reader who's the aspiring writer who wants to write a book. And ultimately, I wanted the person who wanted to write a book without me to feel empowered to write the book, maybe get the journal, because I did a whole companion journal to go with it. You know that there's a course that I created to go with it. But ultimately, this book is lead gen for me, for my bespoke book publishing service, for people that go, that's nice, Honorée. You write the 8 chapters. You design the book cover. You publish it on all the platforms because I am a busy professional. So back to what you said, they're busy professionals and they don't have time to do it. Part of the job of the book for me, the author, and this is just to help you all to think bigger picture, longer longer runway, right, with your book, longer term for your book, is part of what I wanted to do is provide people with a professional example of what I could create. So I put it right in their hands. I made the argument for writing a book and showed them how easy that it could be, while also showing them that it's sometimes not that easy and you do need someone to help you on your process, right? Someone to come alongside you. So the right person is, for me, the right client for me is going to say, I have more money than time. Set my Amex card on fire and let's do it. Right. So, which is what I say to people for me all the time. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. You know how to do it. You know how to do it? Super. Sold. You're hired.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're getting
Yes.
close to, and I want to leave
Yeah.
time for questions. And so
Yeah. Great.
before that, we were going to show something in Plottr.
Yeah. Yeah.
So screen here. So Honorée has helped us make a template in Plottr of her system. And so I wanted to show that for everybody. So this is her template. Hopefully everybody can see my screen here.
Yep. I can see
We
it.
got the outline here of her steps, and as usual, the template, there's a lot of details in here about how or what does this chapter mean, and this is stuff taken right from her book. So she's given half her book away in this template, if not more. So it's really awesome. You can learn everything, not everything, but you can learn a lot about her
Yeah.
book in this template. And so the first part of it is an introduction, and in her book she goes through what is an introduction, and then here's the 8 chapters. Just like she said, encouragement, stories and examples, and then the overview, and then the formula, and ends with the call to action. And then it gives you room to put down the different ideas that you want to reach in each one of these chapters. Not every chapter will have a main point and 4 ideas that they're trying to
Right.
hit. Introduction, of course, but you can have more ideas than this. You can have less ideas, but the point was to show you this is how you make room for your ideas. And so each one of these you can just say, okay, my main point is you can lose weight, just like we were talking about, and
Yep.
then you can have sub points to that. So it
You can
makes it
still eat pizza.
there we go. You can still and we've also added a bunch of notes in here that come directly from her book and her course, that we've just copy and pasted. So like here's what you should do for each one of the chapters. Here's what you should have in your back matter. Here's from the best-selling book formula. What is the big idea? How to figure out what the big idea of your book is. What should be in the front matter. How do you make a good introduction? And even a to-do list of the order of things to do to be able to actually publish it once you're done.
Yep.
So this template is, I think, really powerful. This is what I used actually as I was writing my book I was creating this template as I was writing my book, and it just really helped me to lay out everything and be able to get it done, honestly. So I finished the first draft of it. Just
Congratulations.
Yeah, it feels really good. And so I'm
Awesome.
I'm moving on to the next step. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without this template and without your course and your book. So I really appreciate that.
I'm pretty sure you could have done it, Cameron, but I am really glad that we connected when we did and it helped you, right? That's the whole reason.
Yeah, you're right. I could have done it, but it
Totally
wouldn't
could have done it 100%, but it would have
have.
taken
But
longer and
yeah,
it might have been more frustrating, right? Which is why you lean into a process and a tool. You lean into a process that's provided in a tool, and it happens to be all right here in Plotter, which is amazing because I'm a very visual person. So I love being able to see this.
yeah, yeah. And I'll just show people where you're able to access that. So if you create one from a template, there's these project templates, and this is the Write Your First Nonfiction one. And there's even a link to her website of where you can learn more about her, about Honorée, and about the other courses and other things that she does there. So, but that's how you get to the template in Plottr. So with that, I wanted to open it up to questions, and
Yeah,
either you can come on with your camera and your microphone and ask us questions, or you
please.
can just type in the chat and we'll answer questions.
Yeah, I'd love to see
Honorée
some.
will be answering the questions. I'm just gonna moderate.
Wow. We can answer the questions.
Oh, and before I do that, actually,
Yeah.
before we open up to questions, I want to put a link to your course about the how to write your first nonfiction book here.
Yeah.
Put that. So if
And
you
we
do
have
want
a
to,
code. We have a
yes.
code.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness, yes. So the code is, did I get it right? It's just capital letters, Plottr.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to do the pitch for that course?
Sure. So the course is the book and the workbook in course format. So if you want videos and more tools, more insight, then obviously can be provided in a book. I did a course. The course is 197, and with your code Plottr, it's 50% off. So less than $100 to get access to all of that information. It'll just dive deeper into the ideas that we're talking about here and help you to really check the boxes of getting your book written and sooner so that you can make an income and an impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did 50% off. I couldn't believe that. I was a little
Oh,
surprised you did 50% off. So thank you so much for offering that to these
you're
people.
welcome. And the books are 99 cents. The ebooks are 99 cents. They're 1 year old right now. I can't believe they're a year old. I can't believe I published these in June of 23, a whole entire year ago. And so I put them on sale for 99 cents too. So
Just for this month or
yeah, yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Total bargain, Troy. Buy buy one for all your friends, all your writer friends,
So in the
and get
last
them Plotter too while you're at it.
right there, yeah, definitely. So while just for the last few minutes here, let's open it up to
Yeah.
questions. Anybody have any questions they want to ask Honorée?
Do you have more questions, Cameron?
I do. They're kind of big topics, but so let's see.
How much are your coaching services? So generally speaking, I will charge 2,000 for an hour or 2,500 for 90 minutes. And it's very directed coaching. So you answer um, a multi-page questionnaire because I really want to make sure that I'm uh, making good use of your money, right? So we're going to solve a problem. We're going to map out your book marketing action plan. We're going to map out your book. We're going to subtitle your book, something like that. If someone wants me to do their book for them, it's anywhere from 25,000 for a mini book to 225,000 for a full size book. So I have 4 different book sizes. And then my
When
courses are much more, reasonable. They're $1,000 each. So publishing PhD, building $1 million book business and book marketing mastery, those are all 1,000 each, or the bundle is 2,500.
so when you say different sizes of books, is that length?
Yeah. Well, sizes. So dimensions and also length of book. So 5,000 words, 15 to 20,000 words, 45 to 50,000 words, or 70,000 and up. Those are the general sizes of the books. And those are all in packages where I'm using a ghostwriter that's editorial, it's design, it's publishing. I call it the Auto Magic author package. The author just visits with the ghostwriter and then approves the art and the manuscript, the final manuscript, but their time in is maximum 20 hours, even for a full-size book on an entire book.
Oh, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I had questions about some of the other books that you've written. You've written
Sure.
60. What other, are they all focused on helping people write books or?
No, I didn't get into that until just, 6 or 7 years ago. My first book is a book called Tall Order, Organize Your Life and Double Your Success in Half the Time. And that's this book right here, right over my left shoulder. And that was my original book. And then I redid it as the 10th anniversary edition.
Ah,
So as a business and executive coach, I wrote some of my original books to help people with their businesses, help people with their business development, with their networking, with setting and achieving goals, things like that.
and what are some of your other books about?
Um, let's see. So Vision to Reality is based on my STMA 100-day coaching program, short-term massive action, business dating, which I am rewriting because people think it's about dating and business, but it's actually about networking. So I'm redoing that book right now. And then I get to throw myself under the bus because ineffective titling, it turns out, is a thing. And it's not a good idea. And then I have written the Successful Single Mom book series. I wrote the Successful Single Dad. I wrote a couple of books on divorce. So all around, all different sorts of topics. It's funny when I talk to fiction authors, they say write in a series and just keep writing that series. Don't try to write more than one series. That it's very funny because all of my really successful fiction author friends have multiple series, and they all say if I had it to do over again, I would have written one series and I would have just written in the series and just kept writing the series. But I wanted to be creative and squirrel and all that kind of stuff. I did exactly the same in nonfiction. I write books about things that are interesting to me and that I think would be interesting to other people and helpful to other people. And that's not exactly the advice that I would give.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
you recommend that they stay in one lane, kind of.
Well, if they want to establish themselves as an expert, fortunately, I get to establish myself as an expert in publishing books. So the titles that I've written are a little inconsequential, right? At the end of the day, it's like I know how to write and publish a book. That's the point. Right? That's what I'm hired to do. And on different topics, which is also helpful for me. But if you want to establish yourself as a thought leader or as an expert in a field, it's helpful if you're not writing on a bunch of different fields because that dilutes, I think, the effectiveness of saying I'm an expert in something. It's like, well, can you be an expert in 74 things? I don't know.
Gotcha. That makes
So,
total
so there's that. Yeah.
sense. All right, few minutes left. Yeah,
You can ask me whatever question you want.
so I was going to say if somebody's already, one of my other questions was if somebody's already written a nonfiction book, do you have anything to help them in that case? They've already written a book or
Oh, sure.
they use it better, or if they're on their next book, their third book or something like that.
Yeah, of course. So obviously the tools for writing your first nonfiction book can be applied to writing any nonfiction book, right? The process and the procedure, the Plottr app can be used to plot out any book, whether it's your 15th book or your first book, right? As far as helping authors who have written and published their book and they're thinking, well, gosh, I haven't sold as many books as I want, or I'd like to turn the book into other income streams. I have You Must Market Your Book, and there's a companion workbook to that. I Must Market My Book. So it's putting it into application. And then there's Book Marketing Mastery, the course. And then I wrote You Must Monetize Your Book and published that this year. And that's the companion to Building a $1 Million Book Business, where I outline 13 6 and 7 figure income streams that I've developed that provide legal agreements and processes and manuals and resources for someone to say, well, I want to become a coach. What do I do? How do I think about becoming a coach? How do I become coaching? What type of an agreement do I need? What type of structure do I need? What type of deliverables do I need? So I provide all of that in my course. Yeah.
So yeah, once you write that first book, you got all the levels to help people keep going with their
Yeah.
whole
Yeah,
career.
of course. Yeah, of course. I was figuring it out. I was like a blind person in a dark room. So I had to figure it out. I wanted to turn around and create tools and resources for people who wanted the same thing that I wanted, which was information and a guidebook and a person perhaps sometimes to hold their hand and walk them through the process without having to figure out everything. Because I made it all along the way, I've done okay, but I sure have made a lot of mistakes. I sure did go like the wrong way down a one-way dead-end street a few times and help people hopefully to avoid some of that too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Honorée.
Yes.
Thanks everybody else for joining us, and hopefully you've learned a lot. I know I have just in this hour. Hopefully it was instructive for you. I know it was, I took some of the time for myself, but I really appreciate that.
Of course.
And thanks for joining us, everybody. Well, we'll see you next time, I guess.
Thanks, everyone.
Honorée. Bye.
Bye.